Okay, I'm reloaded. Oh, and spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day, sometimes I'll talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about The Matrix Reloaded, the 2003 sequel to The Matrix, one of the most mind-blowing, metaphor-laden, philosophical, inspiring films ever made. But instead of being as well received as its predecessor, The Matrix Reloaded was more like 2 hours and 18 minutes of, huh? But why did the sequel suck? And now, almost 20 years later, was it really as bad as everyone said it was? So here's what I'm gonna do. Go through the movie, point out all the reasons I can find as to why it's trash, and then at the end, drop a few final thoughts. So the movie starts off with Trinity murdering some security guards with a motorcycle. Now we've already established in the first movie that anybody not unplugged is a potential agent, and as such their lives are meaningless. But here's the thing, wouldn't causing an explosion risk alerting the agents, which by the way she does, and unless the fence and roof are made out of cheap plywood, which I'm guessing they're not, there's no way that bike could crash through them. Trinity should have been flung off as soon as she hit the first obstacle. And where did that explosion come from? Was the bike lined with Semtex? If so, can we be told that? Because that is not normal behavior. Trinity gets shot after jumping out the window, and I know that agents are supposed to be fast bullet dodgers, but Trinity has 2 guns. This guy is falling in a straight line. How are you still missing? Anyway, I guess at this point in the series, anything that doesn't make sense can be put down to hokey-cokey Matrix magic, and as it turns out, the opening was just a dream. Or was it? We now get introduced to Link, who is Tank and Doze's replacement. Morpheus says that Link must do one thing to be on his ship. Trust him, which makes sense, he is the captain. But if you want people to trust you, how about actually explaining your instructions? But then again, Morpheus is really more of a pimp. Now I know I've said this before in another video, but it's worth repeating. If they can load anything they want inside the Matrix, why do they choose to dress in the most outlandish ways when they're supposed to be trying to avoid suspicion? And they all do it. Not one of them thought, hey, maybe we should try to blend in? This guy asks Neo how he knew someone was there. Neo never answered him. Same guy later asks if everything was alright, and Neo still doesn't answer him, and that's just rude. When Neo fought the agent, Neo didn't actually kill the agents, just left them unconscious while he went and did his Superman thing. Didn't even check if everyone else managed to get out okay. So about 10 minutes into the movie, we've established that since Neo got his hokey-cokey Matrix magic powers, he's really just become a prick. By the way, it's kind of fitting that Agent Smith was in an Audi, because later on when they said there are multiple Agent Smiths, they start wondering, how'd he do that? And also, I get why Zahn used machines. They explain later that they use them for air and lights and whatnot, but surely you gotta draw the line at the Minority Report customs control. That just seems like a little bit too much tech. I mean, wouldn't the Sentinels be able to detect that? And if they found a way to mask electronic signals, why not do that for the hovercrafts? And yeah, it looks cool when the giant exoskeleton spins the gun, but really, what actual purpose does that serve? Like, somebody would have had to put a spin gun button on the control levers. What happens if someone hits the wrong button in a battle and they start doing RoboCop impressions instead of shooting? That's literally life or death. You know, I'm not sure I like this kid. He offered to carry Neo's bags and Trinity's bags, but never offered to carry Link's. I mean, sure, he ended up carrying them anyway, but he never actually offered. And then when he's yapping away to Neo, who's clearly not interested, Link says, "Let me guess." But the kid didn't let him guess. Blatant disrespect. I know he gets that kind of behavior from Neo, but still, he's gonna be getting a side eye until further notice. But why is Neo so distant with the kid? I mean, I know he's an annoying little git, but regardless of who saved whose life, clearly he needs guidance. So Commander Locke said, not everyone believes what Morpheus believes about Neo being the chosen one, which is true. Not everyone believes it, but it does seem there is an overwhelming majority that do, so why even bring it up as if there are competing factions? It's only really Locke that is a clear non-believer, maybe a couple of others that might be on the fence. Everyone else has either drank the Kool-Aid or legit don't care. But in the end it doesn't even matter because they always go along with what Morpheus the pimp wants anyway. Commander Locke gets no respect. Everything he suggested was dismissed without any real consideration, so what was the point of him even being there? Morpheus gives a speech which I'm about 95% certain was inspired by Cyrus' speech from The Warriors, just needed a "can you dig it" thrown in. Honestly, would not have been out of place. Anyway, what exactly is the deal with Zion? Because it looks like most people are living well below the poverty line, but do they even have an economy? Best I can tell, there's no need for money in Zion. So why is it you have some parts with futuristic tech and people dressed like they're from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then in other parts, you got people living like they're in the back of the train on Snowpiercer? Bare people just wearing rags and no shoes and having an underground orgy. Another inconsistency is, what exactly do they believe about Neo being the One? Because according to Morpheus, the One can do all kinds of hokey-cokey Matrix magic, but that's only while inside the Matrix, not in the real world. Or rather, he can do at least some stuff in the real world, but we don't know that yet. Anyway, when Neo got back to Zion, all the homeless people would talk to him as if he has godlike powers. And instead of him telling them, no, I can't watch over your son, I'm only human, this guy just let them believe it. And how come Neo's got so much time for the beggars asking for the impossible, but can't spare the kid a second to talk about his life goals? Counselor Haman gives dumb advice. He said he hates sleeping because he slept the first 11 years of his life and now he's making up for it. I get that's a reference to being unplugged, but this dude at least 60, I think you've more than made up for it, fam. Get some rest in it. Then he says the fact that Neo hasn't been able to sleep much is a good sign he's still human, which is technically true, but it's mainly a good sign that you're overstressed and or suffering from depression and or anxiety and or may have a neurological disorder. Do they not have doctors in the real world? So Agent Smith went inside Bane and tried to kill Neo, and would have got away with it too if it wasn't for that meddling kid. But here's the thing, what exactly was his plan? To stab Neo in the back and then single-handedly fight off Morpheus, Trinity and, well, Morpheus and Trinity? Well, really just Trinity. Because I don't think that would have worked. They would have apprehended Agent Bane and got Neo medical help. I mean, assuming they have doctors, jury's still out on that one. But the fact that Agent Bane halted his own plan when he got made suggests that he doesn't have the hokey-cokey Matrix magic powers outside of the Matrix. Which would also suggest that none of them know Kung Fu outside of the Matrix. I mean, I guess it's possible they learned it the old-fashioned way, but they seem to be more interested in shagging than Shaolin, so... Anyway, since Agent Bane's original plan presumably would have involved him getting caught, why stop? He could have gotten a good stomach stab when they shook hands. And yeah, let's be honest, the only person he would have had to fight off is Trinity, because Morpheus is a pimp, he ain't gonna do much if anything. And what's Link gonna do without the Master Sword? Dude's got the Zora tunic on, there ain't no water, what's he gonna do? Also, why did Agent Bane cut his own hand? At first I thought maybe it's because agents don't bleed and he's never seen his own blood, but nope, agents do bleed. I guess it's still possible he hasn't seen his own blood, but if he was that curious, he could have done that ages ago. Seraph picks a fight with Neo to be sure that he is the one because you don't know someone until you fight them, which by the way, also dumb advice. I mean, imagine going on a date, beating up the woman and coming out with, I'm just trying to get to know you, innit? Yeah, I don't think that would go down so well. Anyway, how would Seraph know what the One fights like since presumably he's never met Neo before? Now, possibly he's met one or some of the other The Ones previously, but do all The Ones fight the same? Also, where was Seraph in the first movie? If all it takes was a short fight sequence to figure out who the One is, they could have just done that. And did that key really stay in his sleeve the whole time? You know what? Hokey-cokey Matrix magic. Also, if Seraph is there to protect that which matters most, presumably referring to the Oracle, then again, where was he in the first movie? And why did he leave the Oracle alone on a park bench in what was clearly not even a hard to find location? The Oracle ends her meeting with Neo by saying, "You've made a believer out of me." So, does that mean that when she told Neo that he wasn't the one in the first movie, that was actually her honest opinion? No tricks or nothing? Considering that the whole speech she just gave about programs not doing what they're supposed to be doing and the Oracle herself being a program, I think she might be broken. Agent Smith fought Neo before and lost, so why when fighting him again, not one of the many Agent Smiths fought to bring guns? Lots of guns. Big guns, maybe even a few tanks and grenades with them. And I'm not mad at the fact that they use stunt doubles for the many Agent Smiths. I'm mad at the fact that they didn't bother to CGI Agent Smith's face on at least a few of them, like we wouldn't notice. Speaking of CGI, some of the CGI is so obvious it looks like an episode of Morph. I don't know how many times I might have to say Morpheus is a pimp until people start realizing. But Persephone brings him into the toilets and wants Neo to kiss her like one of his French girls in exchange for the Keymaker. Trinity was ready to go to war, but Morpheus's pimp instincts told Trinity to calm down and let some next girl lips up her man right in front of her. Twice. Now you might be saying, but Persephone gave them an ultimatum. Yes, this is true, and I'm not even saying they made the wrong choice, but the fact that Morpheus didn't for a second consider the emotional impact it could have on Trinity or Neo, even after Trinity expressed a clear dissatisfaction, makes him a pimp. And speaking of pimps, it kinda implies that the Merovingian was getting a happy ending in the girls' toilets, which is presumably where the woman who ate the cake went. The same cake that the Merovingian spiked with a program to make her horny. So, assuming it's the same woman, that's rape. Why is the Keymaker kept in a room that doesn't require a key to open? I mean, sure, it's bolted from the outside so he can't escape, but doesn't it mean that anytime someone wants to betray the Merovingian, it could be done easily enough? Which is pretty much what happened. The Merovingian's vampire gang fired about 1,000,000 bullets at Neo, which he stopped with his hokey-cokey matrix magic. And right after that, they all simultaneously thought, maybe we should try slower, less powerful weapons. I know I've said this before too, but this also needs repeating. They can download anything into their brains. Why not download entire city maps and sewage systems so they don't have to keep calling for directions? Especially when Link gives terrible directions. Neo asks where are Morpheus and Trinity. Link tells him they're in the city 500 miles due south. That's an approximation, that's not where they are. But fine, Neo can fly, he can see more accurately as he gets closer. But when Link tells Niobe where Morpheus and Trinity are, he just says, follow the sirens. How is that helpful when Niobe is too far away to hear the sirens? So did she just drive around aimlessly hoping to hear something? And are we supposed to believe that all those shots were fired and not a single one hit anybody? And the car is still driving just fine. When the agent jumps from his car to the other car and flattened the front bonnet, why didn't he keep that same energy when landing on Morpheus and Trinity's car? The Keymaker gave Trinity a key to steal the motorcycle, but nobody actually unbuckled the straps used to hold the motorcycle in place. Also, Trinity turns the bike around and rides the wrong way down the freeway. When the police give chase, they're coming into the freeway from the exit, which means the police were already driving in the opposite direction of the traffic before Trinity was. How did Morpheus know Trinity was going to turn the bike around? Or was he just on top of the lorry by coincidence? And how come Morpheus only needed one sword in the side of the lorry to do the Sam Fisher? Because those shoes don't look like they can provide enough grip. And where did that other lorry come from? I swear it weren't there before. And are we supposed to believe that neither lorry driver noticed somebody doing the Van Damme in their side mirrors? Matter of fact, all that fighting going on top of the roof and that driver didn't notice any banging noise the whole time? Morpheus jumped from Niobe's car to the roof of the lorry right in front of the driver, and he didn't think, maybe this warrants an emergency stop. Turns out they didn't actually need to kidnap the Keymaker. They just needed the Keymaker to tell them what they needed to do to get the door open and maybe give them a couple of keys. So everything in the last 25 minutes or so, pretty pointless. They could have got everything they needed back at the Merovingian's dungeon and bounced. So now that Neo's dream is coming true, we know that the reason Trinity entered the Matrix was because Soren and his team were killed before they could complete their task. But with time being such an issue, why didn't they load up some nerve gas so Trinity can just walk in with a mask without having to fight everyone first? These people stay wasting time, man, I swear down. And not only does Link give bad directions, his spatial awareness is way off. When he drops Trinity in the Matrix, he says, "That's as close as I can get, better grow some wings." Sounds like she's super far away, right? Literally right next to it. By the way, this is the first of 2 times Randall Duck Kim got shot while helping Keanu Reeves escape. I wonder. Now when the architect said others, all the Neos on the Zoom call started questioning, what others? Later Neo says either no one told him or no one knows. The thing is, the Merovingian did tell him. Twice. So is Neo not even paying attention in his own movie? Anyway, Trinity dies and Neo brings her back to life. Now I'm not even going to question the fact that the force at which Neo caught Trinity should have caused at least a few broken bones because hokey-cokey Matrix magic. Also, if while inside the Matrix people can control their image, why does Trinity imagine herself with teeth fillings? And not even the good teeth-coloured teeth fillings. Those are the cheap teeth fillings you get on the NHS. Anyway, Neo tells Morpheus that the prophecy was a lie and Zion is going to be destroyed in 24 hours. But here's the thing, Neo lied. The prophecy stated that once the Chosen One, Neo, reaches the source, the war would be over. But Neo never actually went to the source. He went through the door to the left to save Trinity. Neo dooms the entire human race to save one woman. That's how you know Trinity got the whap. But maybe he did go to the source. It's not really clear. Neo walks towards the door to the left, but when we see him come through it, he's flying with fire and further back from the door. So, did Neo go to the source before saving Trinity? Personally, I'm leaning more towards no. I reckon this is what you would call a continuity error. Anyway, the movie ends with Captain Roland confirming they should have taken Commander Locke's advice all along. Alright, so before I drop my final thoughts, if you liked this movie, check out these movies. They all deal with deception but in different ways. The Prestige is about people trying to deceive each other. Inception, more about trying to deceive yourself, well, possibly. And Total Recall involves being deceived by covert organizations. So, one of the biggest problems with The Matrix Reloaded, in my opinion, is the excessive dialogue. There is so much talking, like a lot. Like, bro, why are you talking so much, dude? And much of the dialogue is so bloated. People spend ages talking about things that don't matter before finally getting to the point. And even then, they use so much more words than is necessary to make the point. It's kind of like the writing was inspired by Shakespearean plays, but lacked most of the finesse and nearly all of the poeticism. The film somewhat plays out like a cheesy, low-budget kung fu movie from the 1970s, where everything exists solely as a reason to get to the action. But because it spends so long on the talking scenes, when it gets to the action, it often just feels pointless. In fact, at least a few action scenes were pointless. But now this is where I sort of contradicts myself, because as pointless as the action scenes are, they are pretty damn awesome. Even nearly 20 years later, they hold up well. Well, apart from the dodgy CGI. And now to properly contradict myself, the dialogue is also one of the best things about this film. Yes, there is a lot of fat, but when you get to the meat, it's a thick, juicy steak. At its core, The Matrix Reloaded is a film about choice and control. Once they're unplugged from the Matrix, they're free from the system. Neo described control as, if they wanted to, they could shut off the machines in Zion. But Counselor Hammond points out that affects their air, their water, and other parts of life. But Neo wasn't wrong about that. They can shut off the machines if they wanted to. It's just they have to consider that choices have consequences. So although you can do something if you wanted to, doesn't necessarily make it a good idea. It's kind of like leaving your job without first securing another job. You can do that, it's just generally not recommended. But now some of you might be thinking that, sure, it might not be a good idea to leave a job without having another one to go to, but you could probably think of at least a few circumstances where you just gotta go regardless of whether you got another job or not and just deal with whatever happens as best as you can. And this is when we get into the concept of freedom, when you can act in accordance with what you feel is best for you, not necessarily what is logically best for you. Because what is logically best for you, most likely is what's keeping you within the system of control. But there are consequences, because what you feel is best might actually not be, or it may negatively impact others in some way. So freedom comes when you can completely detach yourself from any and all consequences. But yeah, that could also just make you a psycho. There was a philosopher called Diogenes who believed that true happiness came from abandoning all social norms. Now, Diogenes was a crazy mofo, so I'd be reluctant to suggest doing what he did. But I do think there is truth to the idea of not taking on other people's definition of success. But let's get back to the Matrix. Neo is told that he is the chosen one, and we're led to believe that. But he is constantly being given choices and told what to do by other entities. In the first movie, it was a blue or red pill. In this movie, it's you must find the Keymaker and go to the source, and then he's given a choice of the left door or right door. But if Neo really is the one, and the one is destined to end the war, then surely just by following his own intuition, it would all inexorably lead him to the source anyway. The fact that he's being told what to do and where to go suggests to me that he's really just traded one system of control for another. And perhaps that's one of the points they were trying to make, that Neo isn't free even though he thinks he is, just as we might not be as free as we think we are. The next thing to figure out now is that a good thing or a bad thing? But that's what I think of The Matrix Reloaded. What do you think of The Matrix Reloaded? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.